Mental imagery is one of the most important skills that the very best athletes turn to in order to reach peak performance. But it's a skill that's often misunderstood and misused. So this video will teach you all you need to know about this skill so that you can gain the mental edge and level up your performance. So what is mental imagery? And where did it come from? Mental imagery is the process of creating a mental image or intention of what you want to happen or achieve. It's also commonly known as visualization or mental rehearsal. In its simplest form, mental imagery is about seeing what is not already there or in existence yet, and a way to pre-experience successful moments. The origins of mental imagery can be traced back to ancient Greece with Aristotle's concept of phantasma, which is a term roughly translated as mental image. Phantasmata were images that appeared in the psyche, but Aristotle pondered on this idea more in terms of general memory and perception, rather than imagining desired outcomes into existence. Since then, mental imagery has gone on quite some journey. From being conceptualised as the mind's eye in the 1387 Canterbury Tales, to explain how those who have become blind only see through the eyes of their mind, to then becoming a staple meditative practice across various religions. But its growth as a key psychological skill within sports has only come about very recently, after mental imagery has been studied through various psychological lenses throughout the 1800s and 1900s. It was then in 1938 that Coleman Griffith, noted as the first ever sports psychologist, started working for the Chicago Cubs. His work paved the way for a slow but increasing sense of importance surrounding the need for athletes to prepare their minds as well as their bodies. Today, mental imagery and visualization is seen as one of the key mental skills to give performers at all levels that final edge, given the saturation point we're reaching with our understandings of other areas devoted to maximizing performance, like nutrition, biomechanics, and gameplay analysis. But does it actually work? Right now, there's a forever growing body of psychological research to demonstrate how mental imagery can be used to increase performance across every sport imaginable. But perhaps the most famous study was one conducted at the University of Chicago, in which 3 groups of participants were asked to take a series of free throws. These groups were then separated into 3 conditions. Group 1, who were made to practice free throws every day for an hour. Group 2, who were made to visualize practicing free throws every day for an hour. And Group 3, who did neither of these things. After 30 days, the researchers tested them again and found that Group 1 improved by 24%, and Group 2, the mental imagery group, improved by 23% without even touching a basketball. And Group 3 didn't improve at all, which was expected. Other studies have demonstrated that visualizing playing the piano activates the region of the brain connected to the finger muscles in the same way that it does for people actually playing the piano. And another showed that following a simple 15-minute mental imagery script can increase the amount of weight athletes can bench press and deadlift. So if it works, what are the actual benefits? Well, many, and ultimately these will feed into improved overall performance, but underneath these lie a number of individual benefits. You've got increased skill development, given that mental imagery can be practiced during times in which an athlete is injured or their body is exhausted or they just want that extra boost. This was key for the late Kobe Bryant. We've all heard stories of the intensity with which he trained, so when his body was physically done for the day, he would spend extra hours in a room on his own playing out every possible shot in the next upcoming match. You've then got increased confidence. If you played out the scenario in your head 10 times, you're going to be far more confident in going through with it or seizing that moment when it arises in real life. And on increasing confidence, it also helps you prepare for tough moments, because mental imagery is not just about the successes, the game-winning shot or crossing the finish line. It's about understanding that you're going to face particular hurdles and setbacks, and you need to develop a mental roadmap so that when they do arise in real life, you can easily and more successfully get out of them. This was key for Michael Phelps, the most decorated Olympian of all time, when in 2008, during the 200-meter butterfly Olympic final, crisis struck with his goggles filling with water. By the last few lengths, he could see nothing at all, but for years he had visualized every type of race to perfection. His method was to put in a mental videotape and play it out so much so that he would remember every single stroke. So he trusted his videotape despite racing blind and ended up breaking yet another world record in that race. And lastly, it reduces your stress and anxiety, which are arguably the main causes of athletic failures, losses, and opportunities squandered. Mental imagery gives us a greater sense of control over events, and that in turn makes us feel safer and more secure in our performance. So, how would you do it? There's not necessarily a one-size-fits-all for mental imagery. It really depends on what you're actually trying to achieve with it. But there are 3 key things that should be at the heart of any good form of mental imagery. It's not enough to just think about crossing the finish line or hitting that game-winning shot. You've got to understand, appreciate, and experience the whole event. If you're a runner, think about every step being taken while sprinting that last 400 meters. Or if you're a football player, think about placing the ball for a free kick, stepping back, taking deep breaths, then stepping forward before striking the ball. The goal is to familiarise yourself with every single aspect of the event so that you can prepare for any sort of permutation and just have a clear roadmap for when that does arise in a real game situation. Ideal mental imagery requires as much sensory information as possible. Think of all your different body parts and the different tension in the muscles. Think about your heart beating in your chest and what it feels like to connect with a ball or a surface. You also want to clearly see the target you're focusing on from a first-person perspective, whether that's a hoop, a goal, or a finish line. And also hear the screams of teammates or crowd members. Even go as far to use your remaining senses. So if you're a swimmer, imagine the smell of chlorine from the pool, and all other athletes can taste the sweat running down onto their lip. And then to cement things, feel the excitement, the relief, the joy at achieving the successful moment you're visualizing. This rewards the brain and makes it form positive associations to the experience, which reinforces a learned response, a form of psychological conditioning, which means you'll be primed to replicate the same desired behavior in your next performance. Don't be tempted to fast forward things. You want to play out things exactly how they would pan out, because otherwise it doesn't allow your brain to really fully experience it and make those associations. And because of that, you won't then experience any of the benefits that we've already discussed. And when trying this out the first few times, you may experience just naturally fast forwarding things. But think back to Michael Phelps and his videotape. He would rewind if necessary to start the race again in his mind, but he would then play it out stroke by stroke to the exact second he actually swam in real time. So from these tips, hopefully you can see that, like anything else, mental imagery is a skill, and that means it needs focused, deliberate practice. It's not about just imagining the finish line or the successful moment. That's not going to work. Proper mental imagery is hard work, and that means most people are not going to bother to do it. But if you do it, that is what is often going to give you the mental edge over your competitors.